Okay, Lou Hamilton from Audible Elegance here in Cincinnati, Ohio, out by the Montgomery Inn, with another fun topic. And this pile of wire here is probably one of my favorite pet peeves in a lot of home theater systems, as well as some audio systems where they use a subwoofer. It's quite common for me to encounter performance problems with subwoofers, and I've done a couple articles already about placement. I can't remember where I put them because we have a Twitter, we have Instagram, it's not there. I also do blogs on subwoofers, and so you're going to have to cruise around my site. I'm sorry, I try to remember everything I can. But it's very common for the subwoofer placement is fine. The subwoofer itself might be all right, okay. But the problem is the cable they're running to it. I have seen everything from whatever they can find at a flea market to something off the shelf someplace, or somebody happens to label it as the subwoofer cable, and there we are. And that's what they use between the crossover or the preamp to the subwoofer itself. And when you're having a single connection like this, and into the subwoofer, you're going into what's known as the LFE input, which means that the subwoofer crossover is actually used to set where it works. And the quality of the cable is definitely important. But one of the characteristics you absolutely need in a subwoofer cable is that it's shielded. Because if, that subwoofer, can go from 120 hertz down. So your electric in the States is 60 hertz. So if you have an unshielded cable running around a power line, you're just inviting 60 cycle right into the subwoofer in a nice, lovely hum. And I've had that too. So you really want to be careful about your subwoofer cable. And different brands, in fact, do sound different. I hate to say that, but you can certainly get unterminated cables from warehouses that can actually result in a very fine cable as well. But it will require a little bit of experimentation. When you're using a subwoofer in a system, the processors will have what's known as a subwoofer output. And that means that the processor itself is setting the crossover point at which it works. And so you have a single cable with a single RCA, and it goes into the LFE of the subwoofer, and it bypasses the crossover. But we've had situations where people are using older cables. Some subwoofers at that time didn't have an LFE input. They had a right and left input. And you shouldn't be using that or plugging into the right or plugging into the left, because what you wind up doing is stacking crossovers. You have a crossover that's going on in the processor, and then you have the crossover going into the subwoofer, and you create all sorts of nightmares and anomalies with that. So if you have a processor with a crossover, single RCA into the LFE input, let the processor do the control. If you have a stereo preamplifier, on the other hand, where they do not have any sort of electronic processing in it, then you will use a cable that has one you might use the right or left of a preamp out. Ideally, you would actually use a cable that has both right and left, and then right and left into the subwoofer itself, because you have to keep in mind that some of the bass track of a musical performance may be targeted to the right or left speaker, depending upon the track. So if you're going to make the subwoofer balanced with it, you're actually going to be using more or less a standard interconnect with right and left into the right and left input, and then the crossover of the subwoofer it determines at what point it goes up to, not downwards, but up to. As I mentioned, some subwoofers also have phase adjustment, which is really nice to have because placement and phasing can be very important in positioning and performance. And again, the quality of that interconnect will be important as to the sonic results you get from the subwoofer. So don't just slough off the cable to a subwoofer, because it may come back to haunt you in terms of you're not getting the performance you think you should get, and then you wind up moving the subwoofer around trying to get it clear when in fact the signal it's receiving is not clear. And so no amount of movement is going to fix that. So that's just a quick little handy tip about watching out for your subwoofer cables for both home theater and music systems. Thank you.